Hello, the game has started. It's me to go first. I have a balanced rack, no duplicates, but it's not a bingo-y rack. So, can I get the Z doubled? Are there any 5-letter Z plays? I don't think so. In which case, I'm looking at Luz, quite a blocky play, doesn't take any hooks. And I'm not seeing any way of improving that. So Luz for 24. Not good. Too many vowels. There are some five vowel 8s, but none is springing to mind with these consonants and vowels. Great. Quiver takes an A in front, and I have one. So how can I sort the rack out to best effect? I could play a good. Is that best? Keeping EI, not great. Is there a way of playing off one more vowel? I do have goody on my rack, but then that's not using the A. No, I was thinking of Ogdode, but that would need a second D. Let me just put this back and see if I can see a different play with which uses the A. No, I'm not, so I'm just going to have to hope that I don't draw too many vowels. I draw a ton of vowels. That's just one of the hazards of keeping an all-vowel rack leave. However, I do have one scoring tile in the H. And what I also have is the tiles for U, Oi, retaining the H. Now, what I didn't consider last term was a play coming down, ending IZ, but I don't think any such play would have used many vowels. So where can U, Oi play? Well, at the moment it can play underneath a good. And it can also play where opponents has played force coming down column 7. Now, has opponent created a new spot for U, Oi? Well, he has. But the question is this a better one than the one parallel to a good? So that's 13 points, sticking an E out in the open. That's 12 points, disrupting the O. This is very hard, but actually UOI is creating this opening onto the triple word square, so I'm going to come back to this first spot. And I think playing off 4 vowels is preferable to any alternative play which just leaves vowels on my rack. So UOI for 13. Well, more vowels, so there could be some consonants towards the end of the game. But I do have 2 scoring tiles. Now I've got high oi on my rack, which does play parallel to a good. Do I have that anywhere else? Great, opponent does not block that spot. And, well, gets 30 points, which is good, so just 4 points between us. Now the problem with this play is that it takes an S, and all of the S's and blanks are to come. However, good score, good rack leave given the starting position. So that's 27. What about bumping it 1 square to the left? Well, that's only 1 fewer point, and it's a lot safer. I am going with this. I draw U and W, which go particularly badly together. However, I do have A and R for war, and row is good, so I have that in row D, and opponent may be distracted by this P that he's placed in the bottom left, providing access to the triple word square. So what if war is blocked? And I am looking at the moment, in the first instance, for plays which use U and W. And I'm not seeing one. I have upper in the bottom left. If I can't play W and U, I certainly wish to split them up. Only one U to come. If there were more, that would prioritise playing off the U. So this really comes down to a vowel, to a score and rack leave comparison, I think, in terms of comparing candidate plays which split up U and W. Upper keeps EIW, so continuing the trend of vowel-heavy rack leaves, which are then likely to become vowel-heavy racks. It's a vicious cycle and tricky to break, as suggested by the word vicious. So, is there anywhere else for Vor? A quiver takes nothing before or after it. Now, opponent takes my war spot, but only scores 8 points, which is good. He is almost certainly holding on to a powerhouse, and there's nothing I can do about that. However, not a huge number of bingo lanes on this board. So, now I could play re-wrap, while keeping UI, that's pretty grim. So, this is what I'm thinking of, upper for 27. And I draw an S, which is good, but I'm still vowel heavy. However, I do have a couple of good scoring tiles in the W and the H, and they do have some synergy. Great, opponent doesn't bingo. And I have a fairly easy play here of WID. Again, vowel heavy, but 33 points is good. And this is one of the best vowel heavy racks you can have. And surely there must be a few more consonants in the bag now. Can I do any better than this? Well, I could, but at the expense of a lower score. I could play Wade, keeping the H. WAIDE, 27 points, so dropping 6 points. And a rack leave of HIS. Well, if I draw 4 consonants, I've then got the opposite problem. It would be nice to play off one more vowel. I think this is the column to play in. I do have door-ish in column 15, but that burns the S for not enough points. I am going with WID. Wow, I have the best rack in Scrabble. Apart from one which contains a blank, I have retains. And this is an almost guaranteed bingo. You would have to be super unlucky in the early stages of a game to have this rack and not have a playable bingo. So, with that said, do I have a playable bingo? An opponent changes. This is looking good. I lead by 50. I don't have a bingo ending in W. What about a bingo beginning with R? I have retrains. Is there any point in looking for a better one? Are there any double lanes available? No. Any other triple word squares? No, just the top row, and I've discounted that. Now, before I play this, I am putting an X above the I, so there probably is a better play here. There's restrain, placing an A below the triple letter square, and that's fine because the Z has gone. J still to come. But is there an alternative bingo beginning with R? Restrain, retrains. Not that I can see. Now, should I be considering anywhere else? No, I don't think so. I'm going with restrain for 77. And I draw the first blank. Fantastic. And the rest of the rack, not too shabby. There may not be a bingo here, but it looks jolly close. And opponent bingos for 90 odd points. He gets his F tripled, so that's a great score for him. And he now trails by just 20. But can I come back with a bingo of my own? Opponent has provided a ton of floaters, and the E of Uoi looks handy. So, where to start with this? I'm just scanning the floaters, ORMS, in case something jumps to mind. And it hasn't. 12 minutes on my clock, 31 tiles in the bag. So let me scan through the alphabet and see if anything comes to mind. Not seen anything so far. How about the blank as an E? Nothing. So O, R, M and S. And H and W. So the blank as an L. Gosh, that looks... I have... Well, it doesn't play. I have acetamide with an E. Gosh, and that also doesn't play through the M using the blank as an E. But does acetamide have an anagram? I think it does. Not seeing it, though. That's the anti-prefix. Radicant, beginning with an R. Look at this, there is the R of a quiver, the floater I didn't consider, but I do have a bingo beginning with it. Phew. Its anagram tridacna doesn't play. Radicant, I mustn't forget that. There may be other bingos which score more. That would be tridacna through an N and radicant. No floating N. 10 minutes on my clock. Well, it will be interesting to see what I missed there, because I was struggling to find anything. But I do have Radicant for 72. And this isn't too bad. I don't think there's a bingo here, but it's fairly balanced. And I have a scoring tile in the V, and I have a 99-point lead. And the board starting to tighten up. There are no bingo lanes in this square in the middle right, and the only really good floater is the E of Uoi. So I'm inclined to play within the square, and I can see event. Is there anything better than that? That is sticking an E next to this triple letter square. But there's only some middling scoring tiles that can go there. 9 minutes on my clock. So, event for 24. I draw a Y, which can certainly play there with yen. Now, what I haven't considered is the bottom row. But I don't have a play which... Great, just 19 points for opponent, so I've still got a bingo's lead. I'm inclined to leave this E alone because I can't see any great way of blocking it, and a bingo in column 2 won't even get doubled and will provide access to 2 triple word squares, which will really puncture the value of the bingo. So I'm inclined to just keep scoring Now, I do have yen here, leaving double T with one T to come, but this is quite a good 5-letter set. 28 points is good. Can I do even better? Now, what about this A of restrain? Still available for the J, but informs has blocked it. I don't think the J can play there in 2 directions, so I'm happy to leave that. 8 minutes on my clock. Yar is good. Just the 1E to come now. So I could play NY, but I don't think that's as good as YE. I'm going with yen. I draw more vowels. Gosh, let me count the remaining vowels. 5 out of 21. Wow, this is vowel dry. Hopefully that means opponent is further away from a bingo, but given his recent plays, it suggests he may be keeping a pretty good rack leave each time, but simply doesn't have a playable bingo. Now I have no scoring tile, so if opponent does bingo in column 2, I'm not going to score massively. I've got quite a few 6-letter plays on my rack, a tune, Taunton, Mutate, but I'm not seeing a 7 or an 8. Not too many floaters to consider, just the E of Uoi and the M of Mo. So what about the bottom right? S only takes a T. Well, I've got one of those. Only an E goes underneath the R. I could play neat. Doesn't get tripled, but it stops opponent using that spot and it turns over tiles. Just 14 tiles in the bag, and I lead by 100. Now, what about getting value from the Z? So I could play AIA. 20 points. Always good to get 20 points when you've only got 1-point tiles. And it's a slightly tricky position here. I'm vowel heavy, which encourages me to play vowels, but as I've noted, there are very few vowels in the bag. Opponent almost certainly has vowels on his rack because he's unlikely to have kept a consonant-only rack lead. So I must prepare to draw only consonants, possibly from here on in. Which means I must play my vowels with care. Now, what about a play between radicant and informs? Radicant takes an E in front, but I don't think I have any CE plays. Cur is good. I don't have anything which goes between A and M. Opponent taking quite a while with this play. I think he's got the blank. But if he does play in column 2, maybe one of my 6-letter plays will play either side of the bingo. Wow, well, again, that suggests opponent is keeping a pretty amazing rack. What about disrupting this E? Well, if I placed my N there, I can't see any sensible way of disrupting it. However, Toft is good. 7 minutes on my clock. I don't want to mess this up. I certainly don't want to play Ant, which takes an S in front. I think I will leave that E alone for my opponent. What about Utah? Keeps 2 vowels, keeps a very good 4-letter set, stops opponent scoring highly in the bottom right. Not that that was a huge danger with only an E going after the R and only one E to come. However, I like the rack leave, and the score with only 1 pointers is okay. Well, not seeing a 7 here, I would have bleating through an I. Unlikely that an I will become available. I don't have anything onto the E or M. My lead is 120. 10 tiles in the bag. If opponent bingos now, there will be 3 in the bag. Opponent doesn't bingo. And the remaining tiles are looking increasingly non-bingo-y with J, K, X and W to come. Opponent's created a new lane. What I can do is play bag. 7 tiles left. I'm just wondering about playing Bant instead. And I think I will. And what I'm doing here is scoring 19 points, taking out the E as a floater. The B is a hopelessly non-useful final tile in a bingo, unless you've got Choliamb or Choriamb. Opponent could bingo in rows C or E, but those aren't massive lanes, and they will definitely create scoring options. And I'm retaining a vowel. I am going with this. Wow, remaining tiles are pretty bingo-y apart from the J. However, I've got a 130-point lead, which is close to 2 bingos, and I surely will be able to score off the W and X, and I have drawn only consonants. And now I can see what opponent's got. Nearly. There's 1 tile in the bag. Now, what I note straight away is that I can get rid of the X for a decent score. I've got X here for 39 points, which is going to take me to 420, 140-point lead. I lose 26 on countback, so opponent simply isn't going to score enough. Except I will be drawing a tile, and if that is the J, I think I'll still outrun my opponent. Let me put this back. Can I do better than X? With X, same tiles, but lower score. X leaves only consonants, but my priority is outrunning my opponent and guaranteeing the win. So, do I have any alternative ways of doing that? 4 minutes on my clock. Is X best? Just looking around for any alternative spots for it. I am not seeing anywhere, and 39 points is pretty decent. I am going with this. And I draw the J. So opponent has got pretty much the second best rack in Scrabble, the second best set of 6, Satine. Possibly Satire slightly better. He is definitely bingoing here. And he's getting a massive amount of countback. 42 points. But opponent needs to score over 100 to win, and he's only got 6 points on his rack, so he's not going to do that. He's got Retsina in row C and Ag. But he doesn't have anything ending OB. Okay, nice spot. And the final score, 392 for my opponent, 425 for me, a winning margin of 33 points, so a huge win. Let's see what I missed. Well, quite tight at the end, but actually fairly comfortable. So it was me to go first, and I played Luz for 24. I could have got 2 more points, but at the expense of keeping a U on my rack, so I prefer my play. Opponent plays Quiver. and I play a good, and possibly Agio worth considering. It's 2 fewer points, but it is DEO 2 points better than EI. I think it's going to be jolly close. EI must be worth about maybe minus 3 or 4, and DEO I would say is probably either 0 or -1, so I think there probably is a 2-point difference there, and Agio may have been a better play, but only fractionally. Now, opponent's rack, he plays Force, and I have High Oi for 26. Surely I play High Oi. No, I don't. I thought I played High Oi. Ah, no, High Oi would have left double EU. Okay, maybe I play that next turn. So I play Uoi for 13. Wow, opponent has Proditor. Difficult one to spot. Plays Port. Ah, this is why I got so confused, because I still have High Oi and it looks fine. So a bit of a let off there with Proditor. And opponent's rack looks pretty good. So this is where he played the M from this rack, keeping Brides. Quite a good 6-letter set. And this was my rack, and I played Upper, and I could have played Appui, slightly better rack leave. Now, opponent's rack. Burzled, missed bingo. Gosh, tricky one to see. B14, Burzled and High Ois. So opponent plays Bled. Dorish I thought about, but I think WID is better in terms of score and rack leave. AEIS is 6 points better than EI, just. I think EI, as before, probably are worth about -3 or 4. And AEIS, maybe worth 5 or 6. Possibly slightly more. They're all great tiles. It's just the vowel preponderance which is problematic. But I think AEIS overall, yeah, is more than 6 points better than EI. Opponent's rack plays... now this is where he changed. Okay, he was struggling with consonants. Could have got Besoin for 26, but that's a tricky one to see. And I have this Dreamboat of a rack. And I saw Restrain and Retrains, and there's nothing else in the bottom row or elsewhere that scores anything comparable. Great comeback by opponent. He plays in Forms, and now there's just 20-odd points between us. So this is the rack. How many bingos were available with this rack? Quite a few. So Radicant, which I played, Radicate and Radicate. Okay, one of those onto the E of Uoi, and then Abdicate, wow, onto the E of Uoi, and finally Antacids onto the S. Well, certainly were all bingos I should have spotted, but in this situation what's important is that you spot one of them, and fortunately I did manage to find Radicant. Now, opponent suffering from vowels. Plays Pi, and I played Event. I played it fairly quickly. I liked the rack leave. I just felt there was something better, and there doesn't appear to be, or not obviously so. Opponent's rack, no bingo here. He's got the blank. He plays EA. So just going back, yeah, he was keeping a very good 5-letter set in AEGN blank. But it's a very bingo-y set on a non-bingo-y board. Now this is my rack, and I play Yen. And opponent's rack, missed bingos, tangents, entangle and antigene, all onto the E of Uoi. Opponent plays just the N. And now I play Utah for 15, and there's nothing much better than that. And opponent has a ton of bingos here. I don't think he plays one. He doesn't. He plays glam. Gosh. I wonder if that was an active choice. Okay, it's not a choice I would have made. But maybe he was holding out for a bingo onto the M because he felt that any bingo onto the E would just invite a high response in columns 1 or 3. Well, I think I would have taken that risk. Now, this was my rack. And what do I do here? I play Bant for 19, keeping gel and taking out this E as a floater. So this was very much a strategic play rather than a score and rack leave driven one. Now, nice rack for opponent. No bingo. And I suspect he would have had one onto the E, but none is coming to mind in an instant. So opponent plays odd. I play X for 39. And opponent goes out with Sthenia, which was a great spot, and gets a ton in count back to draw within 30 points. So, what a game. It felt like a bit of a slow start with myself particularly being swamped with vowels that I was wading through. Fortunately, opponent didn't zoom off into the distance during those early tricky racks, and I was then able to get a couple of bingos down. And I think Radicant was the turning point. If I'd missed a bingo there, it could have been a very different game with opponent having the second blank. Anyway, many thanks to my opponent for a good battle. I hope you enjoyed watching that game, and I will see you next time.